The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Announce, I think we should give him credit. He gets a Nobel Prize or not, I don't know. I mean, they gave a Nobel Prize to Churchill and didn't give it to Gandhi, so I don't know how they figured this.
They also gave it to Barack Obama before he had actually done anything.
All right, still ahead on Morning Joe. We're going to get
Not
Steve
that Donald Trump noticed
now
that.
Stop.
No, he would never notice
We'll
that.
get Steve over.
The deal that President Trump is announcing played a key part in negotiating is a significant change. This war was blocked for 2 years. President Biden, who preceded him, was unable to find a way to stop it. President Trump found that way by being tough on both sides. And he'll take a victory lap for sure over the next few days, but it's deserved. There's no way that I can see that this would have been done without Trump's pressure in the final hours.
Make no mistake, it looks like President Trump has actually pulled off something here that many presidents before him have failed to do.
We've heard it again and again from a number of people today, really giving credit to President Trump for getting this deal over the finish line. What are you hearing from your sources with regard to President Trump's role in getting both parties to sign off on at least the first phase of this peace plan?
Well, certainly this is an enormous moment for the world, but also for this administration, a big win for the president, who has been very personally involved in this, Lindsay.
Welcome, my friends, to the Thursday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. Praise is pouring in from unexpected quarters, some in the mainstream media. There is praise of a different sort, that being silence from others. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, with the peace plan now signed, the first phase of it, Lord Barack Hussein Obama, the Merciful, praise be his name, has weighed in. Lord Obama today said after 2 years of unimaginable loss and suffering for Israeli families and the people of Gaza, we should be encouraged and relieved that an end to the conflict is within sight. That those hostages still being held will be reunited with their families, and that vital aid can start reaching those inside Gaza whose lives have been shattered. More than that, though, it now falls on Israelis and Palestinians, with the support of the U.S. and the entire world community, to begin the hard task of rebuilding Gaza and to commit to a process that, by recognizing the common humanity and basic rights of both peoples, can achieve a lasting peace. Thank you, President Trump. He didn't say the next part. He didn't say thank you, Donald Trump. Thank you, President Trump, for being so instrumental in making this happen. Donald Trump's name is not mentioned in this at all by Lord Barack Hussein Obama, the Merciful, praise be his name, but that matters not. I understand from our very own Princess Diana and Lady Benedict that there is aghastment on the part of commenters in today's Washington Post over an editorial by Mark Thiessen, and we have that editorial. We shall share portions of it with you shortly. But let us listen to, and this is a longer soundbite than we usually play, let us listen to our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who also had comments today, cabinet meeting in the White House, on this incredible deal that has been made. That's cut 19. Carlos, and this is our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio.
Mr. President, I don't know if one day perhaps the entire story will be told about the events of yesterday, but suffice it to say, it's not an exaggeration that none of it would have been possible without the President of the United States being involved. really began with your trip to the Middle East, where these relationships were forged with partners in the region, personal relationships, close relationships that created the foundation where all this was possible. Where I think this really took a turn. Remember, a month ago, no one thought this was possible. Where it really took a turn about a month ago, less than a couple weeks ago, is when we were at the United Nations and you convened a historic meeting, not simply of Arab countries, but of Muslim-majority countries from around the world, including Indonesia was there, Pakistan was there, and created this coalition behind this plan. Then on that following Monday, you met with the Prime Minister of Israel here, and that plan was presented. And then, of course, our great negotiating team followed up on it. In the interim, again, perhaps the stories will be told, perhaps they will never be told. The President had some extraordinary phone calls and meetings that required a high degree of intensity and commitment and made this happen. And I think what's important to understand is that yesterday what happened was really a human story. There's a geopolitical aspect to it, there's no doubt about it. It creates the conditions for Gaza to one day be a normal place again and people to have a better life and Israelis to be safe. But yesterday was a human story. And because of the work you put in, and honestly, not only is there no other leader in the world that could have put this together, Mr. President, but frankly, I don't know of any American president in the modern era that could have made this possible because of the actions you have taken unrelated to this and because of who you are and what you've done and how you're viewed. And this weekend, because of that, at some point very soon, we are going to see 20 living human beings emerge from the darkness into the light for the first time in 2 years. And that is because not only were you used the credibility and the power and the prestige of this office and the relationships you created, and you committed yourself to making it happen. And I think it will go down as a historic moment in the history of our country and something our country should be very proud of, that we have a president that's committed to not just peace, but to the human aspect of reuniting these families. My last point on this is just a couple of days ago, Secretary Lutnick hosted us all, many of us, at the Kennedy Center. And we have these families, we've interacted with them for so many years, for 2 years now. And the stories are heartbreaking, both whose families are alive and those who are deceased as well, who want their relatives back so that they can complete the process of grieving. And we had all hoped that perhaps that was the day that we would have an announcement for them on the anniversary of the 7th. But I know you were able to speak to some of those families last night. And I just hope the whole nation understands how incredibly proud they should be of their president and of their country for the role that they've played. And I don't want to let this moment pass, Mr. President, without also noting the incredible work of Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Yeah. They're an incredible team working together, facing some substantial impediments to even being there this weekend and doing it. So let me just leave it at that. And they've done a great job on your behalf, Mr. President. They deserve a tremendous amount of credit. But thank you for what you've done for the world. For the world.
Thank you very much.
For the world. And it was mere days ago, September 30th of this year, that Representative Rashida Tlaib from Michigan and almost 20 Democrats called on Donald Trump and the administration to guarantee safe passage of one of these activist flotillas. And this, of course, had that Greta Thunberg person on board, et cetera, et cetera. And they said, in addition to protecting, which they asked Trump to do to protect the flotilla, they demanded that the Trump administration address the issue at the root of the voyage, what they said was the brutal Israeli blockade and genocide of Palestinians in Gaza. It has now been over 24 hours since we learned the news. I have yet to hear from Rashida Tlaib. I've yet to hear from... Now, that's not to say that they haven't said anything. It's just I haven't seen it in any of the reporting. Has any one of these extremely critical pro-Palestinian voices that have been all over the news for the past year, 2 years, have any of them stepped up to the microphones and thanked Donald Trump for his involvement in bringing what appears to be or could be an end to the human misery that has gone on in Gaza? Has any of them? And that misery, by the way, has any of them openly condemned Hamas for causing this misery that has engulfed this part of the world for 2 years? Mark Thisson's column, Washington Post today. Yes, Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Not only does Donald Trump deserve the Nobel Peace Prize, but there has arguably never been an American president who deserved it more. 4 months. He said 4 of his predecessors have won the prize. Obama won 7 months into his presidency, essentially for not being George W. Bush. And even he said he didn't deserve it. Woodrow Wilson, racist, won for creating the League of Nations, which proved to be a feckless disaster that the United States never even joined. Theodore Roosevelt won for ending a single conflict, the Russo-Japanese War. I'm going to skip over parts, it's a little lengthy. And Jimmy Carter won for more than 2 decades after leaving the White House, for a lifetime of work in peacemaking, beginning with the Camp David Accords between Israel and Egypt. And by the way, Egypt is where this is going to be, Donald Trump is headed to sign these documents. Contrast this with Trump's record. In his first term, Trump brokered not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Arab-Israeli peace accords. The first such agreements in more than a quarter century. He did it by rejecting the failed conventional wisdom of the foreign policy establishment, which said there could be no separate peace without the Palestinians, and that moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem and confronting Iran's aggression would inflame the region and put peace out of reach. The Abraham Accords alone were an achievement worthy of a Nobel Prize. Since returning to the White House, Trump has brought leaders from the Democrat Republic of Congo and Rwanda together to sign a peace agreement. In their decades-long conflict, millions dead. He helped pressure India, Pakistan to end, I say Pakistan in honor of the way that Barack Obama pronounces Pakistan. He helped pressure India and Pakistan to end 4 days of fighting in May. Pakistan gives Trump credit, India does not. He helped negotiate end to fighting between Thailand and Cambodia after Thailand lost airstrikes against Cambodia in July. He brought the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan to the White House to sign a peace framework in their war over Nagorno-Karabakh. In what may be his greatest achievement for the cause of peace, he launched Operation Midnight Hammer, obliterating Iran's nuclear program, and then brought an end to the Iran-Israeli war after just 12 days of fighting. Furthermore, Trump maintains he headed off a war between Serbia and Kosovo. The president of Kosovo backs Trump's claim, saying that Serbia was planning to attack Kosovo in May before Trump intervened. And Trump also asserts he prevented military conflict between Egypt and Ethiopia in their ongoing dispute over a dam on the Nile. But even if we set those two aside, all of those two aside, there's still one of the greatest peacemaking records of any administration in U.S. history, and that was before the deal Trump just brokered between Israel and Hamas to release all the remaining hostages held by the terror group. And the editorial goes on from there. Yes, Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize, arguably more than any other American president. That today in the Washington Post.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Well, 2 things. Unemployment rate, folks, prepare yourself. It's going to go up. All of the paid-for Palestinian protesters will now be out of work. And you add that to the Green New Scam bust there's more money coming out of that. There's a whole lot of liberal people going to be out of work. Now, J.D. Vance was at the cabinet meeting, and Vice President J.D. Vance had this to say.
One of the things that we talked about before all the media came in, and that all of us are going to work on for the rest of the day, we've been working on for days, is how to make the shutdown as painless as possible on the American people. So while Chuck Schumer brags about this being good, and I think the president is right, it's not good for him politically as much as he might think that it is. It's causing real consequences for the American people. There's a low-income food program, the WIC program, that my mom actually used when I was a baby. That program is about to be underfunded, and it's about to get cut off because Chuck Schumer won't open the government. We have troops. The Secretary of War mentioned how well we're doing on recruitment. We're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer is shutting down the U.S. government. There are veterans benefits that are going to suffer. There are Americans that are going to suffer because Chuck Schumer refuses to do his job. So while we're all celebrating this incredible success that we've had on the world stage, the country could be doing so much better if Chuck Schumer did his job and opened the government.
And we will have more on the shutdown and a lot more than that. So whatever you do, keep it right here. Don't go away.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Okay, let us move to, we started with the showdown. You heard J.D. Vance. Now, next, ladies and gentlemen, Representative Rosa DeLauro is coming up next. Now, this is not the usual Rosa DeLauro that many of us have heard over the decades. You know, by the way, there are a lot of people who make fun of Rosa DeLauro. She's about, I don't want to guess her age, but she's getting up there. And she is always out sporting these huge glasses and purple hair and all that. And you know people on social media, how they anyway. But I have no problem with that. Purple hair. You want to wear purple hair, but that's on you. But this is unusual. I had to actually text America's Small Caffeinated Mom during the break and ask her a question, which I will pose to all of you after, and including America's Small Caffeinated Mom, we're on the track, after we all listen together to Rosa DeLauro. She was speaking at an interfaith event. And this is what Rosa DeLauro had to say, cut 8, and here she is.
Are rooted in the Bible, that the Bible is his worldview. And I would just say to you, he is a man of faith.
Speaker
I would
Johnson,
agree to that. And he says that those beliefs are rooted in the Bible. But the Bible is replete with guidance of attention to act as a community, to focus in on the poor. And the Bible lays out a faith-based policy agenda. It espouses social justice. Exodus commands not to oppress the poor or the stranger whose cry God will hear. Leviticus set aside a share of the harvest for the poor. The Gospel of Matthew on the need for a living wage. The letter of James on the obligation not to show favoritism for the rich or the needy. And so I do not understand people of faith, and I don't understand the speaker, about how the healthcare crisis fits with that worldview. It does not fit with that worldview. What Democrats...
Okay, so you heard Rosa DeLauro. She says she does not question that Speaker Johnson is a person of faith, but then she goes ahead and questions, I don't understand how any of you Christians cannot agree with us, with our point of view. And she specifically pointed out Exodus, as you heard, Gospel of Matthew, and she pointed out the book of Leviticus. And therein lies my question. I seem to recall sometime, it must have been maybe 10 years ago, the book of Leviticus was coming up in the news, And I'm trying to remember the context, because all I remember was that liberals and Democrats were upset that the book of Leviticus was being quoted. And I'm wondering, because do any of you remember exactly why liberals were upset when people were quoting the book of Leviticus? Rosa DeLauro, they're quoting the book of Leviticus, so I assume that she must believe, if she's quoting biblical now. We rarely hear Democrats quote biblical, by the way, so let's take this one as a small notch of victory. But if Laura DeRosa is quoting Leviticus, something is. So maybe America's Small Caffeinated Mom, maybe Princess Di, maybe Lady Benedict, maybe somebody will remind me why Democrats used to get so upset when people were quoting the book of Leviticus. My memory seems to be failing on that point. And her other remarks, it's Rosa DeLauro. Maybe I'll save that cut till Saturday and play it again, because we rarely hear Democrats quoting from the Bible. We don't hear Democrats quoting from the Bible very often, and there you go. Now, Chuck Schumer, speaking of shutdown, it's quick, but you all heard it, and people are referencing it all day. That would be the one.
Each day, our case to fix health care and end the shutdown gets better and better, stronger and stronger.
And he made some other remarks. Chuck Schumer, that's what he said from the Senate floor. He was interviewed by Punchbowl, and Chuck Schumer said to Punchbowl when he was interviewed, they say we interviewed, I'm reading from the Punchbowl article, we interviewed Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer on Wednesday in his Capitol office, where the New York Democrat was as bullish as he's ever been about his shutdown strategy. Every day gets better for us, Chuck Schumer said. Every day gets better for us. So, every day is getting better for Chuck Schumer. Hakeem Jeffries may not feel the same. He was on CNBC, and this is how that went with Hakeem on CNBC.
The Republicans were put in a position where they were able to pass the big, beautiful bill, or you call it the big, ugly bill, to then say, we don't like any of that, so we're going to shut down the government until you take back all the things that you duly passed through legislation. If Republicans had tried to do that to the Inflation Reduction Act or the any of the acts that Biden and that administration have passed, if they said we're going to shut down the government because we don't like any of those things you did, we're going to not pay our military, we're going to, not allow the government to reopen until you do what we want. After an election where the American people put Democrats in power, you'd be going crazy. You'd be going crazy about using a shutdown of the government with a continuing resolution to get what you want just because you don't like what the Republicans did. It's not how it works. It's bad. It's bad precedent, and it's just clear. And you're talking about the House. You've already passed this. The Senate is who we're talking about, and they have a bill which will reopen the government right now with 5 more Democrats.
What is bad precedent is the Republican refusal to engage in bipartisan negotiations. What is bad precedent is the Republicans embarking on a my way or the highway approach from the very beginning of this Congress. Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Joe, you're exactly right. So if the government shuts down, they've made the decision to shut the government down. And they can reopen it right now if they chose to with a rule change in the Senate. But I just explained it. The reality is they want to keep the government closed. Cruelty from the very beginning of this administration has been the point. And the responsible thing to do is to sit down and negotiate a bipartisan path forward to address a very real health care crisis that's upon us right now. Open enrollment starts on November 1st.
Can you do those negotiations while the government is reopened?
Yeah. That was Joe Kernan at CNBC, gave Hakeem Jeffries a little spanking there. Now, as Chuck Schumer says, it's getting better and better. Every day gets better and better for Democrats. Here's how better it's getting for Democrats, my friends. Got a story today. You'll find this story in the Daily Mail. You'll find it elsewhere because you'll see it on TV too. Planes grind to a halt at multiple major airports as travel chaos spreads across the United States. Travelers across the U.S. are facing mounting flight delays, with multiple major airports reporting departures running behind schedule. The disruption affecting New York to California to Florida has been attributed to a variety of issues, including runway congestion, low clouds, as well as the ongoing government shutdown. And you see more and more of those. And it's a big story. I'm not going to spend it all. Yesterday, my friends, we talked about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie was on with Wolf Blitzer and Pamela Brown on CNN last night. And I am just going to play the cuts. I am going to refrain, I believe, unless I cannot possibly help myself, from making any comments. So I'll tell you what, let's start with 10 and then 11 back to back. That'll give us about 2 minutes worth of Marjorie's appearance there, but then we have some others. 10 and 11, Carlos. Marjorie Taylor Greene on with Wolf Blitz and Pamela Brown on CNN.
Oh, I don't think it's good advice that a government shutdown is going to help Republicans in the midterms. I don't agree with that. I also don't think it's good advice that Republicans ignoring the health insurance crisis is going to be good for midterms. I actually think that would be very bad for midterms. And I think that just not staying focused on America First policies is detrimental as well.
Yeah, and on that note, are you concerned about the cost of living?
Very.
That the President Trump said he would lower?
The inflation crushed people in the past 4.5 years, and the costs have not come down. I myself can tell you my apartment here in Washington, D.C., the electricity bill is $100 more than it was last year, because you can look at your own bill and look at cost. Prices have not come down. That is a reality. People's wages have not gone up. That's another reality. And so Americans are continuing to have a very difficult time getting by. And I'll go a step further. I'm a mom. And so when it comes to what is affecting my adult children's lives, who are 22, 26, and 28, I'm going to be 1,000% fighting for them over any politician and any party. And
okay,
I can tell you
thanks,
right now.
Margie, we got that. Okay. I you know what? Countermand that last one. Let's go quickly to cut 9. We're not going to play the whole thing, but I want you to hear who Marjorie Taylor Greene is blaming for this government shutdown.
New Washington Post poll. It shows that 47% of Americans believe that President Trump and the Republicans are mainly responsible for the shutdown. You see it here on the screen, compared to just 30% of Americans who blame Democrats. Of course, Republicans are the ones with the power. Do you agree with Americans in that poll that see the shutdown as your party's fault?
You know what? I don't think the shutdown is popular for either side. And so I see the shutdown completely different from maybe my party leadership. And I'm not putting the blame on the president. I'm actually putting the blame on the speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not be happening. And I don't think, look, as a member of Congress, we already have a low enough job approval rating. This shutdown is just going to drive everybody's approval rating that much lower.
But so you're putting the blame on the leadership of your party?
Absolutely. We control the House. We control the Senate. We have the White House. I've been vocal saying, you can use the nuclear option in the Senate. This doesn't have to be a shutdown. But what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. And our country is so divided right now.
Okay, you got the gist of it. So the Democrats are not to blame. It's this shutdown is the blame, according to MTG, of Speaker Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Thune. They're the ones to blame for the shutdown. Okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene. They of course had to ask her about the Epstein stuff. Cut 12, again, going to play as much of it as I can bear. Cut 12.
The Jeffrey Epstein files, wanting to release those. I know Democrats have also been calling for that, a few other Republicans as well. The Democrats are accusing Speaker Johnson of delaying the swearing in of Arizona's Democratic Congresswoman-elect because she would give the last vote needed to release those Epstein files. I'm wondering, the Speaker, for his part, he has denied that. He said it's because of the shutdown. Have you spoken to him? Do you think she should be sworn in right away?
Well, I'll say it like this. I can't conclusively say if that's why the House is not in session, but the House should be in session. And the House should be in session for many reasons. We have appropriation bills that need to get passed. There is a new Democrat that's been elected that does deserve to be sworn in. Her district elected her. We have other bills that we need to be passing. And if it's to avoid the discharge petition, why drag this out? That is going to have 218 signatures. And so I say go ahead and do it and get it over with.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and lastly, this cut 11. She talked about what's happening in her district with health care. Cut 11.
Hearing from my constituents, it's great. We track all the calls that come into my office. About 60% of the calls coming in right now are calls of support and saying, yes, health insurance is a crisis. They're telling us stories about how they're already paying $2,000 a month with $10,000 deductibles. I'm getting phone calls from people that are saying if the ACA tax credits expire, they aren't going to be able to have health insurance.
Breaking news.
And gentlemen, we have just gotten word here at Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour that New York Attorney General Letitia James has been indicted over mortgage fraud claims. The Attorney General of New York, Letitia James, has been indicted this afternoon, coming from the New York Post and from other sources. Attorney General of New York has been indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of mortgage fraud. The case was presented by a U.S. attorney who was appointed by Donald Trump after the previous prosecutor who had expressed doubts about the case was. So, for Coney, now Letitia James has been indicted. Yes.
The Rush Hour with James Golden on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Rush Hour with James Golden. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
On this day in 1940, English musician, vocalist, bandmate John Lennon was born. 1956, he formed the Quarrymen. That band evolved into the group that would later become the Beatles. Co-lead vocalist, rhythm guitarist of the Beatles, John Lennon. The partnership that he and Paul McCartney engaged in remains the single most successful songwriting team in history. This one, John Lennon said, was his finest work with the Beatles. Of course, his solo career, just amazing, right? John Lennon, 25 number one singles on the Billboard Hot 100. The Beatles, over 600 million albums sold. 40 years old when he was murdered in New York on December 8th, 1980. Remembering the great John Lennon. May God bless and protect each and every single one of you, your families, your loved ones. Love and gratitude, my friends, for your being here with me, allowing me to be with you. God willing, back tomorrow for the Friday edition of Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. Until then, I bid you adieu.
Thanks for listening to Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour. You can hear Bo Snerdley's Rush Hour weekdays at 4 on 77 WABC. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?